I guess I'm sort of an Eeyore. If you know the Pooh characters, Eeyore's always got a problem, or sees a problem. So I'm drawn to the lament. The lament psalms first taught me that God listens and accepts to all of the thoughts and cares of our hearts, even our complaining and our list of grievances, kvetching, whatever you want to call it. Almost all of the lament psalms, they have something in common with this passage from Lamentations, which is a giant poem of lament. Lamentations tells of the difficult situation of the people of God during the siege of Jerusalem by the Babylonians. And in the midst of that list of impossible grief and desperate situation, a voice of hope and praise is added. So listen to God's word through the poet of Lamentations from chapter 3, verses 21 to 24. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. God's mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him. Amen. 2 weeks ago, my task for today was to share a reflection about mothers with 1 or 2 other people. That seemed doable, but last Sunday the task got larger as I found out that I was the only one doing this sermon. Something that I told folks like Nevin, sorry, that I would never do. Ever say never, right? So I get to share some of God's word with you, to us all, as we either blunder or step confidently through lives of belonging, to families, to each other, and to God. And when that slide came up, did you hear the rumble in the earth as my father turned in his grave? Because it's not grammatically correct. But, sorry, Dad. I have in common with everyone here the fact that I have a mother, but I don't necessarily share the fact that I have a brilliant mother. Maybe Maggie. A mother with whom I'm still able to share my life, who many of you know, who can come to church with me, who shares her creativity with me, and who continues to bless me with her example of patient, faithful living. I know that not everyone's experience of being a child is like mine, but I'm so grateful for my mom and how she reflects the character of God in her life. And I'm glad to tell you a little bit about her. She came from a small town in North Carolina from a large family, and in some ways her life was very different from mine. In recent years, our quilt guild had a challenge for members to create quilts that reflected their favorite songs in high school. So I asked my mom about hers. It turned into a really difficult question, not because of the 80+ years she was combing through to get that information, but because, as I finally realized, she had no radio in her home. Radios did exist, but not everyone had one. So if you wanted to hear music, you had to make it yourself, and that's not her strong suit. She said that sometimes they had hay rides and they sang on those. And some people could play the piano, and if your home had a piano and you had the means to buy sheet music, then you could hear popular songs. But very different from my life, where the popular music of the day was the soundtrack of our lives. Literally, from the moment we woke up, we put the record on the turntable and we were off. Recently, I was reminded that she also had no car in her home. Her grandparents had a vehicle, but they did not always live nearby, so they walked everywhere. I complain when I have to walk upstairs. Her life was also markedly different from mine because her parents and 2 of her siblings died when she was young due to diseases that could not be cured. The medicine that might have cured them, penicillin, was not given to a civilian until my mother was 22 years old. By that time, she was, however, well on her way to her career as a nurse. She graduated from one of the top nursing schools in the country, spent time as a U.S. Army nurse in World War II, and she ended up out west with a job in Arizona. Her nursing school friend introduced her to my dad, and the rest, as they say, is history, so now you're stuck with me. Our family was formed out of that great bond of love. Mom was definitely not a June cleaver. She had a job outside her home in a time when most of my friends had moms who did all of their work at home. But somehow, except for a few holidays where we had to wait till her night shift was over to leave for the family gatherings, I don't think we felt any lack of attention. She showed us all that working hard was the way to get things done. 3 girls taking ballet, needing fancy costumes for the recital. The answer was set up the sewing machine, stay up late, get them done, carry on. She also taught me that being slow to speak is not a bad thing. You always know what's important with my mom, because she doesn't natter on about anything and everything. What she says is what she means, and it's usually important. She was an inspiring example as I entered adulthood. But I recognize that not everyone has an inspiring mother like mine who worked harder than seemed humanly possible to provide special things for her children. On days like today, I lament for the struggles of children who receive little and need so much more from their parents. And I pray that they can see God's faithfulness in spite of human failure, so that they can forgive and love and receive all that they need. Just yesterday on the radio, which I have one of everywhere, I heard that belonging is the new gratitude. A few years ago, gratitude was being studied, and social scientists and even scientists were studying how beneficial it is to health, to well-being, to mental positiveness, and all of these things. Well, now they're saying a sense of belonging is that. Good for your health. Seems like common sense, but I'm glad somebody's talking about it. My sisters and I often marveled at our circumstance with gratitude for being surrounded by a loving family and belonging to our mom. Our mom taught us that belonging to a family is a gift and can ground your identity with a web of relationships that goes beyond acquaintance and friendship because of that belonging. Perhaps that is why when the time came, Dave and I entered parenting sort of backwards. Before we had actually birthed any children, we met our future daughter, Dawn. She was a skinny, quiet, 15-year-old who came to church youth group with a friend that she had made at school. We discovered that she had been orphaned at age 8 because her parents were killed in a tragic head-on collision with a drunk driver on the highway between 101 and Lompoc, where they lived. That tragedy was compounded by the years between when she was 8 and 15, and she was shuffled between one distant relative or connection to another, often in home situations that were not supportive, nor were they beneficial. And they definitely didn't help her feel any sense of belonging. And when we met her, she was living over by San Marcos High School with some non-related grandparents and a great-grandmother of her older surviving half-brother, who was grown and no longer at home. When we learned that her grandparents, as she called them, were losing their housing situation because the son that owned their home, also not a relative of Dawn's, wanted to sell the house that they lived in, cash out, and buy something in Las Vegas, where they would then live. Dave and I were struck with sadness, because here was a vulnerable teenager who had just found a church home, was establishing those all-important friendships, now having to move for the umpteenth time and enter yet another school in Las Vegas. Sorry, Scott, but it didn't seem like a good thing to me. We asked if she wanted to become part of our family. I realized that I had no idea what that meant. Dawn had no idea what that meant. And I began blundering my way through mothering the hard way without any preparation. Dawn didn't know how to belong much of anywhere, and I certainly didn't know how to establish connections with someone whose relationship patterns had already been formed with defense and self-preservation as the foremost responses to difficult situations. All I can say is, there is a God. It was hard, but the difficult times, my mistakes and blunders, and her fears and choices were all protected by God's pardon, peace, and presence in our lives. Plus the fact that Dawn is a remarkable and amazing woman who, when she grasped God's gift of grace, she pursued a faithful life with enthusiasm and deep integrity. And our ignorant choice to become parents of a teenager first gave our family a unique dimension that we could not have imagined. When Jordan was born, Dawn was still in high school. They adored each other. He thought she hung the moon. And when he was in 1st and 2nd grade, he was so excited that she would be his teacher. Hannah was born when Dawn was almost graduated from Westmont. And Dawn was there for that birth as well. Hannah's first baby giggle was accomplished while we were wrapping presents for Dawn's wedding shower, and my sister made that rippling sound that you get when you run a scissor over curly ribbon. We all remember that and connected with Dawn. And last week, Dawn's daughter, our granddaughter, Eliana, graduated from Westmont. And next month, our grandson, Miles, will be graduating from Carp High. God gave us a huge gift as we experienced belonging in a family in conventional and unconventional ways. But I know that even our unconventional family was hundreds of times easier to navigate than the family situations of many others. And for those who do not belong, for those who are absent from their loved ones, for those where family life is broken, I grieve and I pray God's peace and healing. I believe that God is standing with the brokenhearted families of our world. And I believe that we who know that can and should work to make a difference in those torn situations. As many of you know, I have also been blessed in life as I mothered my younger children, Jordan and Hannah. I absolutely love them. They are light and laughter to my world. They gave me good memories of motherhood to counteract the inevitable frustrations of that chore. But I know that there are women who have experienced much anguish and pain and worry, either over their children or over their lack of children. For those women for whom Mother's Day is not a good day, I'm sad. And I pray that God's unchanging compassion will become a real presence and comfort in this day. We can speak kindness, offer help, or simply stand alongside those for whom this day is hard. I'm a believer that it's important to have reminders of God in your life so that you have an anchor to hold when life is unstable or unexpected challenges appear. We're told by the poet of Lamentations to remember God's steadfast love, unending mercies, faithfulness, the daily provision of God as we walk through the difficult paths of life. The situation recalled by the people hearing Lamentations poems for the first time was horrible. The people had turned away from God, and then for 30 months, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar laid siege to Jerusalem. The people were trapped. No one in, no one out, no supplies in. The conditions were savagely appalling, and they had really given up on God and assumed that God had given up on them. Even in the midst of a litany of the horrors of that siege, the poet remembers hope, not based on wishful thinking, but solidly built on the character of God. And love, constant and never-ending, aiming to restore people, solidly built on the character of God. And faithfulness, the constant provision of hope and love each day, with no day having less available than the day before. Cannot use it up. It's solidly built on the character of God. The hymn that we'll sing later, Thomas Chisholm wrote, "Great is thy faithfulness," based on these verses. And I'm so glad he did, because it is a tune that has run through my life many times in many difficult situations. It's helped me remember that God is with me, God is for me, and that God gives me what I need for that day. I don't know anyone who never worries about anything. And as a first-class worrier about many things, I know that it can be debilitating. It can make you cross that line to the dark side where nothing gets done. Worrying over this task alone caused me a couple of sleepless nights and associated anguish until I could relax and remember what my sweet Hannah always says when she senses that I'm approaching something hard. You got this, Mom. But more than that, God's got this. Look at the birds, Jesus says in Matthew 6. Even King Solomon, gloriously rich, royally clothed, was not dressed as richly as the field lilies. Instead of fretting over what to do, go straight to the source. Seek God. Seek God's way of living. Seek God's character. And I love the blunt NRSV translation of the last sentence of this teaching, and you did too, because you laughed when I read it. Today's trouble is enough for today. But the flip side of that is also true. God's provision for today is enough for today. And tomorrow's provision will be no less. So quit fretting and get on with life. Where are we going as a congregation? What are we supposed to do in transition like this? What will a new pastor be like? Will people come? Will they join us? Will we have the wisdom to know how to reach out? Will we lose our identity as a church? Are we preparing enough in the right direction? These are not unlike the worries that I have as a mom. Are my kids on the right path? Have I done enough to prepare them for difficult situations? Well, that ship has mostly sailed. So now I worry about whether I'm doing enough to support them as they face the situations I didn't prepare them to face. Will they continue to feel God's presence? How will they prepare if they face parenting themselves? By compounding worry with anxiety is not the answer. Jesus told us what to do. Seek God. The hymn writer told us, accept today's provision. Before I finish, Margaret's going to pop a picture on the screen. I'd just like to repeat this image that has spoken volumes to me in the few weeks since we saw it first, one of the Sundays after Easter. This painting of the Emmaus Road trio with Jesus, almost unseen, but solidly present. If you notice the middle guy, he's got his hand on the shoulder of the Jesus figure. This is my new image and reminder of God's faithful presence in my life. Even when unseen, we can put our hand on Jesus' shoulder and walk along with him. He can explain the true situation of things if we listen, and he will be beside us. So, family of God, accept strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow that are part of God's great faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, God's hand has provided. Great is your faithfulness, Lord, unto me. So let's join in singing that almost 100-year-old hymn of Thomas Chisholm's, Great is Thy Faithfulness.